Welcome everybody to the July BusinessWorks. This program of the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce is on creative thinking and innovation in business, navigating the changes in your business due to COVID-19. I'm Bill Russell. We have a number of speakers with us today. Susan Medlin with Vintage Marketing. She's a marketing strategist here in Cornelius, and she's been a Chamber of Commerce member for about 20 years. We also have John Bradford. John Bradford is with PetScreening, and he's also with Park Avenue Properties. Both of these individuals are entrepreneurs, and we are really fortunate to have them. Dale Gilmore is the Business Growth Chair for the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to be facilitating today's program. And Dale, I'm going to turn the program over to you.
Great, thanks, Bill. So, as we kind of explore all of the options that we have before us as business owners, and as we thought about good programs for the chamber, a couple months ago, I chatted with John Bradford and Susan Medlin about things that we need to try to get back to the community in this kind of weird time that we're in. So, as to kind of get started, John and I don't know how many years ago, I remember being at a Charlotte Chamber event with John standing next to him, and he tells me about this new pet screening thing that he's doing. And at the time, it was, I think, still an early idea, and he was thinking about raising money and capital to do it. And, to kind of remember that first conversation, to see where he's at today, I'm really excited for him to share that journey with you. And then Susan, I've known for a long time, and she's served a lot of great businesses and helped them grow their business with her efforts. So I'm really, really appreciative of both you guys joining us today. So why don't we start a little bit, Susan, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit of your journey and your company with us, and then we'll jump over to John, and then we'll jump into the program.
Sure. Well, with this topic of creativity and innovation, it's sort of timely. It's exactly how my company was started. I used to work for the largest food manufacturer in the world, Nestle Foods, and they were really a tremendous champion of that. And we were encouraged as brand managers to come up with ideas, and maybe they weren't great, but it's okay, because often they were, and new products were sprung off and new marketing campaigns. And I came back to North Carolina and worked in the industry that I'm in now, which is the agency world. And I found that the first few agencies I worked for were more likely to tell me why something wouldn't work than why it would. And that sort of spurred me with the idea of let's start something where we embrace yes and change and innovation and creativity for not only us as an agency, but us in our strategy for our clients. And so I started this company. We just had our 27-year anniversary. It's a sheer miracle. And we are on Main Street in Cornelius and also in Charleston. So it's nice to be with you all today.
Thanks, Susan. John, why don't you give us 2 cents on you, and then a little bit about PetScreen.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, first, thanks to the Chamber for inviting me to this. And I've been a long-standing member of the Chamber and was on your board at one time. And hey, Susan, congrats on 27 years. It's quite an accomplishment. I know Dale, Susan, and myself, we all at one point belonged to Entrepreneurs Organization. So I know the three of us are entrepreneurial, and we just don't talk about it. We actually prove it by, trying things. And I've had a lot of crazy business ideas through the years. I've competed in inventors contests. I think the difference between me and maybe others is if I have an idea, I am willing to try it, even if it means it doesn't work out and then you got to go in a different direction. So I do have a company called Park Avenue Properties. We are 13 years old, and we do property management for professional investors, not apartment communities, but single family houses. And then I served in the legislature, where I really carried a lot of tenant landlord related issues for both tenants and landlords. And that's where I kind of started to get this idea to maybe start PetScreening. PetScreening, we're a tech company. We'll talk a little bit about it, but we're a pioneer. There's no one like us in the entire country. So we're really having fun because it's unique. But when you apply for an apartment, the humans get screened, but the pets don't. Well, now they do through PetScreening. And we also stop a lot of bad actors who claim they have service animals. And I'm sure all of you have been on an airplane and there are a lot of people that need these animals for sure, but there's also a lot of bad actors who are trying to pass their pets off as animals. And so our company helps make sure we hold people accountable. So we'll talk a little more about it in a few minutes, but we're a property pet tech based in Cornelius, and we're having a lot of fun growing.
Great. Thanks, John. So just as a framework to think through innovation, and, this isn't a creative way, because I'm a bullet point guy. So creativity, needs like empty white space and all kinds of ideas, but there's still a process behind innovation. And John said it a minute ago. I mean, it's often starts with this idea or a solution to something. And a lot of people then don't know where to go or what to do next, or are too nervous about taking that idea to the next step and just consuming their life with it. So as you come up with that, then there's sort of this initial testing or understanding of whether it's a relevant idea, and it really does have some use, and you can get people to buy into it, and the market research that goes behind that, which Susan sometimes can help people with, and then you sort of then put a business plan or a business case behind the idea to see if the math works and you can actually make money doing this. And then once you kind of have that together, you either start fundraising or you're in a place where you're already capitalized and you can do maybe broader testing just to see how it goes. And then all of a sudden, maybe you're building processes to start a business. And before you know it, you have a business that's built around this idea. So, and then you become in this continuous improvement mode of what are the tweaks and changes and the new things in my business. And so as you kind of think through the sort of life cycle of where you started, John, with PetScreening, share with us how the very initial kind of inkling of that idea, if you will, and when it became sort of, man, this is really something I need to think about.
Yeah, I think some of the best ideas are some of the most obvious. And think about this idea of screening a pet that's getting ready to move into a rental property. It's just never been done before. And frankly, I thought of the idea as a function of my first business. So I think many entrepreneurs are sort of in a trench doing something, and then they perhaps see something different, a hole or a gap that needs to be filled. And that's what I saw. I saw an opportunity where even my own company didn't have enough details on pets and the pet ownership, because frankly, I don't believe pets are the problem. It's really the pet owners, because not all pit bulls are bad. I don't believe that. And so the only way to disprove that myth, though, is with good data. So I just had the idea, and I started talking to a couple of my staff members about it and said, what do you think? And the reaction was very positive. Like, that's a really creative idea. So I started looking for domain names, because you got to have a good domain name, right? You got to go out and get a .com. And PetScreening was available. And every time I did pet screen, it was like screens, like window screens for pets. And so when I saw the domain available for a whopping $3.99, I thought, okay, that's a good domain. So I went ahead and grabbed PetScreening, and I put all my own money into it. I bootstrapped it. You'll hear that term a lot for people who start up tech companies. Bootstrapping just means you're scrounging every penny together to do it. And I bootstrapped the company for 2.5 years to prove that this idea could work. Fast forward to where we are now, we're three full years in the making. We're nationwide. We truly are doing business in all 50 states, which is incredible. We are changing the industry and how people think about pet ownership. We're taking those dogs like pit bulls, German shepherds, again, who usually don't get a fair shake in housing. And some of those property managers are thinking differently about those animals, because again, it's really about the owners. And then we're stopping a lot of what I call bad actors with service animals and fake emotional support animals. So, we're having fun, but the idea came to me. And I think the one thing I just would impress upon everyone is I think this country is getting ready, I believe, to see the biggest surgence of entrepreneurial endeavors we've ever seen, because people have been working at home, they've been working remote, and they have a little more time on their hands because they don't have that commute. And I think there's gonna be a lot of entrepreneurs that have just been waiting for a reason to start their business. And I would submit to you that there's no greater time than to maybe start that now, because I can't believe it's been 3 years. Dale, when we talked, that was probably 3 years ago. And now my company's completely changed since then. So anyway, I don't know if those are helpful things, but that's how I started PetScreening. True story.
No. So when did you know, like, obviously once you went and got the domain and when did you know though that it was going to work? Like what was the, like, man, this is really going to work? What was going on then?
So, I was lucky because this product services the rental housing industry, and because Park Avenue Properties is a property management company, my company was our first guinea pig. And it was very important to me that my employees at Park Avenue didn't know that PetScreening was my product, because it was the only way that I thought I'd get real good feedback, right? Because if they knew I owned it, they'd say, oh, this is a great product, when really if it was terrible, they wouldn't tell me. So the only people at Park Avenue that knew I was doing this was sort of my executive, team, if you will. And we did that by design, because when we brought PetScreening to my own company, they just thought it was a product that we had identified as something to use. And I think when we got really good feedback from our team about how this is like Pets for Dummies, makes it really easy on being consistent, how you get pet information and vaccination information and photos, I knew that we were onto something. I really did, because that feedback is incredibly important. And it was honest. My company would be the first one to tell me that vendor is not doing a good job. And so by them not really knowing I owned the company, I think it was a smart move to do it that way. So that's, I think, when I really knew we were onto something.
Do you have any example you can share with us of something that didn't work through this process and how you corrected course?
Let's see, something that didn't work. Yeah, I would say software development is extremely expensive. Let's start there. Developers, they get paid to build something, and if it doesn't work, they get paid to fix it. And if it breaks, they get paid to fix it again. So development can be very expensive.
Yeah.
So one thing that I have learned is when you find a development company to help you, it's important that there is somebody between the developers who sit at keyboards all day and develop. But they may not understand the business logic, Dale, on what you're trying to do. So they'll go develop what they think they need to develop, but you need someone in the middle that has the ability to bridge the business logic in development speak. Yeah. Because I have learned that if you don't do that, you spend a lot of money redoing something that probably could have been avoided had someone told the developer in their speak what needed to be done. And I have experienced that. So we now know, and so we have like a product manager that helps bridge that gap.
Yep, got it. Given the times that we're in and everybody working from home, and is there any kind of unique thing that has popped up or changed that you've made with the business as a result of what's going on today, or any shifts that you've made in your business?
Yeah, so I would say we're very conference intensive. We travel the country going to rental housing conferences, the National Apartment Association, vacation rentals. You can imagine how many conferences are in the housing industry, from vacation to long-term to short-term, corporate housing, senior housing, affordable housing. Well, when the pandemic happened, as we all know, travel came to a halt. So we have a brilliant marketing mind at our company, and she had this idea to create a virtual trade show booth. So we set up our trade show booth very similar to the way real estate agents do virtual tours of homes. But the difference with what we did is we brought in this Matterport camera, which does a 360-degree filming. And so you can kind of pivot the camera up, down, sideways, all the way around the room. And then you can take the mouse and click on things. So we set the trade show up with like a table that had flyers. And if you hover your mouse over the flyer and you click it, a PDF of the flyer actually pops up. Or if you take it over to like the name tags on the wall and you clip on the name tags, it brought up a screen of our entire, we call them our pack, the PetScreening pack, they're our employees. So I think that was really creative. And then every time a conference got canceled, which all of them did, we had the distribution lists and we sent them this link to the virtual tour and said, we can't meet you in person, but we still want to invite you to our booth. And that's been very creative.
That's cool. So, what would you say, what's the next kind of challenge for you and PetScreen?
I can tell you what that is. I know it offhand. Our sales teams are so used to being out in the field, going to conferences, that we're now having to sell just like we're all talking together. And so having to sort of pivot and rework the sales strategy, you're not meeting people. So the relationships aren't as superficial I should say superficial, but they're not as in person anymore, where that the relationship now is stronger than the product. So for us, because I think we have such a great product, it's going to be more about making sure our sales teams can get our messaging out there to a group of people that we usually would have met in person. And that's really a paradigm shift for salespeople who are used to knocking on doors and shaking hands and trading business cards. And so we're trying to make those adjustments. But I think we're actually doing a really good job of it, but we're learning every day.
Yep. I'm going to transition to Susan, but before I do, as she's our brilliant marketing mind, can you share a little bit about what role marketing played, in the beginning, and sort of how that, you already shared a little bit of that already with us, but, when you thought of marketing in the beginning, and then how you think of marketing now, may be very different than when you thought of it in the beginning.
You're right. So in the rental housing industry, there is a big business around animal DNA, specifically, not to gross anyone out, testing dog poop for people that don't pick it up on site. This is a huge business in the industry. So people get their dogs swabbed, and if there's a pile of waste in a common area, there are testing kits to match the pile of to the DNA on file. So when PetScreening got started, everyone thought we were a DNA doggy poop testing company. They did. And I could literally watch them walk by our booths, and out of their lips, because my wife's a speech therapist, so I feel like I'm better at reading words because of her. She forces me to do that. And I would see them go, "They're a poop testing company." And I'm like, no, that's not what we do. We don't do poop. So we really had to use marketing to make sure that people understood that pet screening, because they've never heard of a product like ours before, the only natural type of pet screening must be DNA screening, right? So we really had to leverage marketing to get our message out. And so marketing for us has been the single most important thing next to development, right? The developers are the most important, because if we don't develop the product, we got nothing. But after that, marketing. So I am a big fan of marketing when it's the right message. And we had that challenge about dog poop.
Yeah, no, good example. So before I jump to Susan, I forgot to say this in the front end. Anybody on the call here, if you want to type any questions for John and Susan in the chat, we'll weave them in here, or we'll save them for the end. Or you can also unmute when we get to the end and just ask direct yourself. So either way, I just want to make sure I say that before we transition to Susan. So jumping over to you, Susan, when you kind of look at the beginning of things, creativity and innovation, how can marketing help that kind of come to life? And how does that lead to success for businesses that are just getting started?
Well, I think following up on what John just said, creativity it's critical. It's in the business itself, because it's one coming up with the product. And some of the smartest ideas aren't original. They took another idea and just improved upon it. So my hero is Thomas Edison. Yes, I realize he's an old guy, but to this day, he has more patents in the U.S. Patent Office than anyone else, over 1,000, and another 500 applications that never came to completion or were just deemed not to be worthy of an extension of a patent. But my favorite all-time quote is from Thomas Edison as it relates to creativity. And it was this out of the story. Thomas Edison is known for a lot of things, innovation in lighting, but Thomas Edison also invented the phonograph, which was the way we, for the first time, captured sound so that people could listen to it at home. Well, what's remarkable about that is Thomas Edison was deaf in one ear and mostly deaf in another. So a guy who couldn't hear invented the very device that allows us to capture sound. Well, how did he do that? If you've ever gone to his winter home in Florida, you'll see his lab, and it's fascinating. If you ever just need, when we can travel again safely, a way to just get away from yourself, go down there and see this. You'll see his notes, and it's like the mad professor. And the phonograph originally had the big, broad tin horn that you may remember. Well, he would bite it to see if the machine was capturing vibrations, and he would feel the vibrations, not hear the sound. So Thomas Edison would tell his people, sometimes you need to listen with your teeth. And I think, Dale, to answer your question, now, especially now, but we're marketers, and John, thank you for giving your marketing team such credit. We love hearing that. Where marketers can really add such value to an organization is to be the ones to step back and look at it through a creative lens. You know, accounting looks at it from the numbers, and development looks at it from logistics. But the creativity, and it doesn't have to be a marketer, it can come from anywhere in the organization, and should, in fact. Google gives awards to the person that had the best idea that didn't work. So in your organization, whether it be a nonprofit or your business, it is very beneficial to encourage creative thinking, and particularly if it doesn't work, because that encourages other people not to be afraid to come forward with ideas. I'm going to give you one other case study, and I'm going to look at my notes here because I have the dates on this, and I love it because it started right here close to home. There was a pharmacist in Greensboro, and his name was Lunsford Richardson, and Lunsford created, back in the late 1800s, Vicks. I don't know if any of you grew up and your mamas would put Vicks on your chest so you could breathe, and it made you breathe, but no one could stand to be around you for about 48 hours. So here this guy in Greensboro, and he had for a long time the single best product for croup, and it was Vicks Vapor Rub. So it was the salve, and he didn't tell the secret ingredient. Everybody knew about the menthol, but they didn't know about the secret Japanese ingredient he had. Well, those of you who are children of the 50s and 60s, maybe even the 70s, might remember when this happened. They decided that they were going to increase sales by taking Vicks Vapor Rub, but putting it in a liquid form that you could just drink instead of rub all over you. So they're doing all the testing of how to make this work. And during the testing, this was back in 1966, they found out it was really effective. It worked, but it made people sleepy. So the product developers were about to scrap it. And guess what came out of it? Somebody at the table said, well, wait a minute. Why don't we just market it as the, say it with me, coughing, sneezing, wheezing medicine, nighttime sniffling, sneezing medicine so you could sleep. And the name NyQuil actually came out of nighttime tranquility. And that whole product was because of a failed product launch. It wasn't what they thought it was, but instead of scrapping it, it became, to this day, the #1 over-the-counter liquid cough and cold flu medicine. They eventually came up with the daytime medicine, and then they flavored it. And so every 10, 15 years, NyQuil has continued to, and this is where creativity and innovation, you take a successful product and continue to re-evolve it. It got repackaged as cherry flavor, so kids would like it. It got repackaged in the little capsules, so that if you don't want to be guzzling your bottle at work, you just pop your little pill. And so that, I think, is just sort of a classic all-time study of where innovation and creativity came together. One other one from my personal background is, I don't know if any of you ever grew up drinking chocolate milk as a kid, but Nestle is known for its chocolate. And someone in the factory, literally in the factory where the chocolate is made, at the end of the day would watch all the chocolate dust that was being swept up after making the chocolate bunnies and the molds and the candy bars. And these factories are, of course, of pristine condition. But this guy said, you know, it'd be great if we could just take this chocolate dust and do something with it. Well, Nestle's Quick was exactly what that was. Now, how do you market chocolate dust that you've scraped off as scraps? You put a cute bunny on TV and you give him a name and he talks about chocolate. And so this is just one more idea to maybe inspire you. If you've got something in your own company right now happening that maybe is not a profit center, but with just a shift in thinking, a different creative direction could become, as in the case of Nestle for many years, your #1 profit center.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So given creativity and innovation, share some of the things that get in the way for businesses and business owners to sort of get there. What are the things that are holding them back from opening their mind?
Our #1 challenge that we've seen over almost 3 decades, certainly I've been in this business for longer than 27 years, but the #1 challenge we see with our clients, the #1 barrier to creativity is the word no. And they've already decided why something won't work. The bottleneck to creativity is often at the top of the bottle. It's the person that's so overwhelmed with all the logistics that they can tell you there is absolutely no way that this will work, because they're the person who has to think through it all. So the biggest barrier, and when we help clients launch new campaigns, think about testing new products and new services, I like to call it the no game. Literally meaning the word no is not allowed to be used. So we sit down in focus groups and we sit down with leadership teams and organizations and we say, and I'll start it with this. I'm going to put this paperclip on the center of the table. And I want you all right now to tell me something that could be done with this paperclip that maybe hasn't been done before. And so everybody goes around the table and you can't say why that won't work, and you can't say why it hasn't been done. And by the end of the day, it's really amazing how often people come up with creative things that had not previously been considered that you could do with something so simple as a paperclip. So then we try to transpose that same level of thinking into expanding a business line. I'm working with a client right now. It's a restaurant. It's been a really challenging time for them. They do not have space at their restaurant for takeout. Logistically, it's just not well done. And so I simply said, why don't we go to the neighbor next door who has a retail store that's fledgling and offer to rent space and knock a hole in the door so our takeout can be there. They also didn't have outdoor space, and we get requests every single day for takeout dining. So I said, okay, let's cover the patio. Well, we don't have enough money right now, so we bought tarps, just simple wind sail tarps. So instead of thinking all the reasons of why things won't work, reach hard and deep and take costs off the table, take logistics off the table, and often you'll find that the solutions aren't as complicated as they seem to be.
Great, thank you for that. So this is sort of, as you got a new company that's sort of got a brand new, taking PetScreen as an example, it's a brand new thing. It doesn't exist, versus a company that already has something that exists. And perhaps there's lots of people that do the same thing. How is the marketing process different when you get started with those, what's the difference in how you would approach those customers, Susan? The new idea versus an existing known product.
Well, I think for us as a marketing strategy firm, research is the very best thing, whether it's a new product or an existing one. Oftentimes, maybe John, following up on what John said, sometimes you have these ideas and they're just not possible, but testing them if you can is so worth it. I'll never forget, as long as I live in client world, we were launching a new community bank in this very market. Richard, one you might remember from way back. And so we sat around the focus group with different demographic segments from the community. We had nonprofits, we had small businesses, we had large businesses, we had different ages, and we did multiple focus groups with different these segments, because we needed all those segments to bring this community bank to life. And I remember this woman looked at me and she said, if you want my business, you need to make sure that your employees look like me. And it was that simple, but it was her number one reason for the bank. So we knew right then, our staff is representative of our community. So it's going to be really important to feature those people, whether or not they have banking backgrounds and relationships. And then another woman, this particular bank, as many startup banks do, they were in a large mobile unit. And this gentleman, who was of significant success, he said, now how do I know my money is not going to be taken away overnight if somebody tries to take away your mobile trailer? And so that's not anything we would have ever considered, that somebody thought their money wouldn't be safe. So we learned from those focus groups the messaging that was going to be critical in our marketing and how to address them, whether it was on the prospectus side, raising money, or in launching the bank. And then once, client, you're up and running, okay, this is a faux pas on our part. And I'm still kind of mortified that it happened, but luckily it had a happy ending. We worked with a cardiothoracic surgeon, and this is Tom Trahey was his name, and brilliant guy. He'd come down from Duke and he was in Concord. So they engaged our firm to help let people know that you didn't have to go to Duke for cardiothoracic surgery anymore. And so we did this campaign. We're now in the heart of Concord, really successful, had great response, and it gave the image that we wanted to give. And later he opened a practice in Salisbury. So we just picked up the campaign and did it. We're now in the heart of Salisbury. Perfect. And then they moved to Albemarle. Well, we revamped the campaign. We're now in the heart of Albemarle. It turns out the heart of Albemarle is a hotel in downtown Albemarle that charges by the hour. And had a different connotation that we would probably want for this cardiothoracic surgeon. And as luck would have it, being nice to your media reps paid off, and the rep got the ad and she said, you can't run this ad. You can't run it. And she explained why. So, we were reminded then that what works in one place for the exact same client may be totally different in another place or with a different market. Some of our clients, we have multiple websites. I have one client, we have 5 websites for them. Why would you need 5 websites? Well, because in their case, they have very specific product lines. And instead of, this is just a Google tip that everybody probably knows, but Google is all about relative content, and we depend on search engine results for this particular client. So when we create these, I call them microsites. They're very small, 4 to 5 page sites, but the content is just about that particular product or service. So when we run our ads and we promote that service, instead of dropping somebody on the main website and they have to cipher through to get to where they want to go, these microsites land them right there. They can see the information. There's a way they can call from that site to a dedicated line. We know what they're calling about. They can send a form to get more information. We know what they're asking about. And we can also track traffic to those specific sites. So we can show the client, here's the return on investment in terms of potential activity. So I would say just going back to whether it's an existing service or a product or a new one, treat them all individually, and don't forget to step back and determine what new possibilities, like John's virtual trade show, might be better than anything you previously did before.
Susan, you might have just touched on this, but I have a question, and it sort of goes back to John's business. How do you market differently a new concept or a new type of business than you might have in a traditional business? For instance, Zoom. Many of us were unfamiliar with the product of Zoom, so we have to get our hands around it. So how do you market a different new product like a pet screening that is new, niche, and novel versus a traditional business?
I think the biggest difference is you have to tell the benefit of what you offer or what you're selling. Versus an existing business, it might just be name awareness. So once upon a time, we all thought an apple was something that you kept on your desk and had for a snack. We now know it's something you keep on your desk and you Zoom from, in our case. So Apple they've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars of shifting a paradigm to now when we hear Apple, most of us will think a technology product rather than that which falls off the tree. So at the beginning, you have to, as John said, you're not about poop. You're about something else. But the name, ideally the name tells it, but often it doesn't and it can't. So at the beginning, you need a longer, more detailed message. You need to be able to not only say what you do, but why it matters. You're selling often the sizzle, not the steak, but ultimately you still gotta let people know there's a steak at the end of the day. Conversely, now companies that are established can simply keep their name. McDonald's, we all know what McDonald's is. Most people don't know what the M is for. They actually started being known for their crispy golden fries. So the M of the McDonald's, that's French fries. That's where that logo came from. But McDonald's, you hear that name and you know what it is, but yet when they bring back that crazy McRib thing once every 3 or 4 years, they got to show the product and tell what it is for a whole new generation of McRib eaters. So I think that's the difference, is in the level of the detail of product or the service versus, and you have to spend more. It costs more and you've got to have more frequency. Just a kind of a general rule in our world, reach is the percentage of your target market that you reach or that your message is exposed to, and frequency is how many times they hear it. So for new products, we aim for at least a 48% reach and a 16 frequency, 16 times to get it to stick. Existing business, existing service, we can cut that down to about a 5 frequency on a sustainable average. Does that help answer?
That helps a ton. So I've got I think, Susan, I think that you've covered off on most of the questions that we had here for you, and maybe there's some other things in a second, but we've got a question from the audience here that I just want to add. It may not be about creativity and marketing, but the question is, you know, how are you finding capital, or how did you find capital for, it's probably specific to John. You know, was it a traditional bank? Did you go to private equity? Where is it coming from today, and how do you think about it maybe tomorrow for your business?
Yeah, so there's, you know, I mean, right, cash is still king. Access to capital, as I'm sure Richard Peppers will agree, access to capital is incredibly important. It's about cash flow when you're starting a business, because without cash flow, you can't stay open. So for me, when we went to, I did raise a round of money. It's called a Series Seed, and that's not, it's SEED, so because there's Series A, B, C, D, but there's a kind of a newer term out there in the last couple of years. It's called a Series C. You know, there's angel investments, and these are usually smaller groups that make angel investments. That's one route. There's a group in Charlotte called Charlotte Inno, INNO, and this is more tech related. So, you know, I think if you were starting a dry cleaners, then you would not go to Charlotte Inno. So technically speaking, from a technology standpoint, Charlotte Inno, they do pitch contests, they have pitch breakfasts, and you have to have a really good pitch deck. And marketing is what's going to make your pitch deck decent. If you do not have a good pitch deck, you are dead on arrival. So having a pitch deck that's concise, pitch decks are usually 7 to 8 slides. You have to get your message out in 7 or 8 slides, and you usually have about 20 minutes to keep someone's attention. Then they ask questions for 15 minutes. And usually that's what a pitch is all about. And there are some pitch breakfasts like Charlotte Inno, and there are a lot of companies. I didn't realize the woman that started Sign Up Genius. You ever heard of Sign Up Genius? Mm-hmm. Who hasn't, right? You know, she lives in Charlotte. She started that company. She lives in Charlotte. And I didn't know that. And she's a whole part of this whole tech community in Charlotte. And so I raised money with a series of VC companies, 3 venture capital firms. We made a pitch deck. We were very fortunate because of the uniqueness of idea. I felt like we had more VC firms that wanted to invest in us than we needed, which was a good, we're lucky. I don't mind saying that. And then you can also go and, you know, borrow money from your bank, but that becomes more personal guaranteed. And then you're really just basically bootstrapping, and that's a different type of bootstrapping because you're getting a personal loan. One thing I will say is there are idea people and then there are entrepreneurs. The difference between an idea person and an entrepreneur is the entrepreneur actually took the chance, took the risk to go get the reward. Idea people have great ideas until 3 years later they see it on the shelf and they go, God, that was my idea. I had that idea. And so ideas don't pay the bills, folks. They just don't. So at some point you gotta, I think, take action. And so, and entrepreneurs, that's what they're known for. And every entrepreneur can tell you a story of failure as much as they can tell you, I think, a story of success. The key is having more successful ones than failure. I mean, that's really the key there. And of course, once you have a good idea and you prove that it's more than just a concept and it truly is a business, then it's easier to raise money. And the tech business, their multipliers are crazy. 10 times top line revenue. Top line. So, if you go create $100,000 in top line revenue for a tech company, your valuation is no less than $1 million in the tech world. So, technology can be great, but it also is extremely expensive. So the barrier to entry is the development, which will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you do it right. So that's sort of the risk reward. I do want to make just one comment about this last thing. One about marketing. Remember I told the poo story? So I came up with this idea to have a FIDO score, FIDO score. And for anyone in the world of banking or in the world of doing screening on site, everyone knows the other type of score, which is traditionally known as a FICO score, FICO score. So I thought, well, I'm going to create a FIDO score. So we trademarked FIDO score, and we have a FIDO score that is provided on every pet and its owner. And that FIDO score is what landlords are using to fine tune their pet rents. The FIDO score almost basically explains what we do just when we say it. And I can't tell you the number of times I've been talking to someone and I say, pet screening, we screen pets and we give you a FIDO score. And they go, oh my God, I love it. I love it. FIDO score, we get it. And that just shows you how simple, I think, one marketing term can say your message if you get it right.
John, following up on that, on the opposite end of the financing is I did the old-fashioned way when I started this company. Banks were not particularly interested in funding agencies, nothing terribly unique about that. So everybody told me I was crazy at the time, but I cashed in my 401. So I sort of self-funded for my 401 campaign, and also took an equity line on my house. And I remember my parents saying, what are you doing? This is crazy business. And it was a big risk for sure. But I look at what I was able to do in the first year of this business, knowing I can't fail. There is an amazing drive that comes from knowing you have no backup plan. Success is the only way to go. So, depending on you, some businesses need much more capital. But in my case, I was able to go that route between the equity loan. We have another client right now we're working with. It's a business that's expanding into South Carolina. They've done very well in the Lake Norman market. And the funding mechanism we're using for them is to try to find investors. They're going to take on a minority partnership. And so we've put together investment packages, gone into that market. In fact, Bill was very instrumental in introducing the client to the chamber in that market. So we could come into the market with local ownership. So depending on your model, it sounds like between what John's mentioned and the opposite end, don't let the funding kill the idea before it gets started.
Susan, I know you had originally a tough time getting started, but when we expand vintage marketing, I know some personal bankers, one in particular that would help you expand that business.
Thank you.
Well, I will say, Susan, and to everyone who's listening, 100% of zero is zero. And, and sometimes if you have a great idea and you may not have the capital wherewithal or access to do it on your own, go find your trusted circle, right? A trusted circle is usually a good CPA, a good attorney, because you want to make sure you're starting your company the right way. Should you be a S corp, a C corp? What are you going to be? Get a good attorney because that's important. I think to have just access to that, a good financial planner, build your core team, a trusted team, and then go out there and try to find someone that is passionate about your idea as you are, even though it's your idea. And sometimes give a little to get something. And even if that means bringing in a partner to help you, so be it. Just don't have sour grapes when your idea, goes to the atmosphere and you go, God, why did I give that away? Because you got to think back to when you had nothing and you were looking for that partner. Because I've seen that. And sometimes having someone along for the ride is not a bad idea, because even if you gave away 20% of your idea, 80% of a lot of money is still 80% of a lot of money versus 100% of no money. So I think that's something to think about as well.
I got a question for you, Susan, from the audience. It says, do marketing companies ever work on a contingency base instead of just a fee for service? And that was just a general question.
Sure. We get that question very often, particularly just in the last 3 or 5 years. Here's the challenge with that. Marketing is often challenged with bring new prospects to the door. Marketing agencies and firms, let me sum it down. Our job usually, first and foremost, is to make our clients money, period. So we understand that. We don't ever forget that. There are some rare exceptions where the client needs help with a crisis PR situation or trying to change an image. So there are exceptions to that, but ultimately it's about, our job is to make sure that bottom line is trackable. Some of our clients, and we have one that we've worked with, we named them and we're now planning their 25-year anniversary party. In this case, we are, as John just talked about, your trusted partners. We are that role for marketing for that company, and we get their financials every single month. So in a situation like that, our compensation is partly based on the performance of the company. We agreed to that because, one, we know the client and we've worked with them so long, and we didn't start that way, but two, we see their financials. And we control in this case, it's a healthcare firm, we control their patient surveys as well. So we see that the patient experience is good, the logistics, which we can't control, are producing a positive result. And we also manage the inquiries. To answer the question, I think the challenge for someone looking for an agency to work on a contingency basis is showing the agency how they are going to have trackable access to the data to show the performance. I'm sure it can be done because we've done it in a partial sense, but for a new client, a new agency, you're going to have to be creative in thinking on how you pitch it to them. We had a realtor recently come to us and want us to work in that regard. But we didn't have any access to his numbers. So it would have been that agent just telling us what he sold and doing a percentage. And that wasn't something we were interested in taking, but had he come to us and said, okay, here's our MLS reports, you'll see, I don't know, there'd probably be a way to work it out, but I think go ahead, John.
I was going to say, here's something that I've seen in development that could be applied, I think, to marketing. So this helps answer the question, and maybe even is a good idea for marketing companies like yourself. There are companies that have developers that will come into a good idea of tech, and they will they don't give it to you for free, but they substantially reduce their billable hours to a fixed scope of work. And in exchange, they become a small equity owner in the company. So they don't tie it to necessarily the results of the company. They actually go and take a small piece of equity. And so again, depending on the company, depending how big it is, the development company still, is willing to give something. They can't do it for free, but I think there is a way for a marketing company with a company that has promise to figure out a way to put a budget together in exchange for equity of the company. And that too, though, friendly reminder to the business owner who strikes that deal, if that marketing company does their job and your business goes really well, don't have sour grapes when you now have that minority partner and they're making money with you. Because at the end of the day, if it wasn't for them to help you, then you might not have reached that success point. So that's a model that works in development that could be applied to marketing.
And don't forget too, to the individual who asked that question, you've got two parts of marketing. You've got your strategy, which is where a really good marketing partner can be invaluable. That is not going to cost you money. That is, if they're very good, they're going to make you money, sometimes in just telling you what not to do, not letting you waste money. But you've got the time of the agency for strategy or creativity, but then you've also got your expenses. So whether it be the build out of your website or your e-blast or your direct mail or your media. So the agency is going to have outside expenses that they're likely not going to want to front. So you're going to, even if you find someone to work with you on a contingency basis, you're still going to want to have a budget in advance to execute the ideas.
That was great. So before I wrap up with maybe a final question, is there anything else from the audience? Is there anybody else any other questions out in the audience before we move on to the kind of closing remark here? Okay. So in the end, I mean, if you had like one sentence to say, each one of you, Susan and John, to someone that has this great idea, and they're so nervous about what to do with the next step, and perhaps they've got a W-2 job at Bank of America, and are tired of working from home and want to just get out and try something new. What would you encourage them to do with their next step?
So I'll jump in. If you never take the first step, then you're not going to get across the finish line. It's that simple. You will never have a better time or less busy time. It just never happens. Life gets in the way. So if you truly think you have a good idea, and if you have run that by your most trusted people, and even reach out to people that aren't just going to tell you yes, 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 because that's what I remember. I told you that story about my own company. I didn't tell them I owned it because I knew they'd say, "Oh, John, it's so great," because I own it and I didn't want that. You need real feedback. You need someone to either save you money and say, "Don't do it," or, "You know what, that does seem like it has legs." Once you feel like you've had enough shopping around, then you got to figure out a way to get the money and get it going. Otherwise, it's going to do nothing. And I would just tell you that I can't think of a better time, frankly. Our economy, with what's going on in the pandemic, people are working remote. You have time on your hands. Take a digital notepad. I used to do this all the time. I was on airplanes a ton. I'd bring up my iPad and I would my little fingers just did this. And I was just writing down ideas about once I had an idea and develop those. Just start, and then eventually, and that's how my FIDO score came to be, is because I'm like, wait a minute, FIDO score. That's perfect. So then I went and saw if it was available. So just do it. That's what you got to do. Someone's got to nudge you to either do it or not do it, but at least put it to bed. Don't be caught seeing it 5 years later and going, "Oh, that was my idea."
John, I think that's great advice. I will follow up with a little more practical. I completely agree with what he said, but I'm going to follow up with, you've got to have money in the bank, because often you're not going to see profitability for a while. So yeah, often not 3 months, but 3 years.
3 years.
There we go. So make sure that you're not going to be panic stricken, that you can pay for the power and the lights and your rent or your mortgage. So make sure from somewhere there's a nest egg that you and or your family are taken care of, because if you're operating out of sheer panic, that will inhibit your creativity. So I think that practical advice I would give. The second is test the idea. Focus groups are, I think, the most valuable thing that we do for clients. Or like I just did this for a gentleman. He works for one of the banks, and he has this idea. He just happens to be a whiz at Excel, and he figured out this idea in the insurance industry, kind of totally different, of how he could help insurance agents with these projections through this Excel data. And so he wanted to do this as a consulting gig, and he called us for marketing. His budget was very limited. So I said, I can't help you yet, but what I can do is spend 2 hours with you and sit down and ask you the questions that you're going to need to be able to answer. And one of the things that came out of that, he walked away from that lunch saying, I hadn't thought about me. So it's a little overwhelming when you get so many things thrown at you, but he said, I hadn't thought about any of these things. And now 6 months later, I just heard from him last week. He's quit his job and he's off, but it was a 6-month delay because he had to, and one of the things that was wrong, he had the wrong name for the business. He couldn't get the domain name, the .com. So he had one of these sub names. And I kept telling him, your number one issue is the name of your business. It doesn't explain what you do. And it insinuates you do something else, like John's business concept. So test it either with a focus group or find a couple of really trusted business strategy people, run it by them, and then also make sure what else is out there that's already in your marketplace and find out why you're going to be different or better. And it doesn't mean you're cheaper. It might mean you're faster to market. It might mean that you have the beer industry. The beer industry is the perfect example of take the same product and change it. Budweiser owned the American beer market for the history of bottled brewing. And back in the, when Tab came out and the diet craze and yoga, what was it that everybody used to do? I'm drawing a blank on the name. The classes that everybody would do. Anyway,
the Zoom boxing or something.
Yes, the diet craze came in, and so Tab hit the market, and so Miller, who could never get past Budweiser ever, Miller said, "We're going to do diet beer." Of course, no one said diet beer will work. Yes, it did. Less filling, tastes great. Miller Lite, number one on the market for 21 years. Then Heineken said, "Oh, us too. Well, we're going to be the first best." It was Lowenbrau, first and best import beer. So it's same bottled beer, but they're just changing the nuance of it and how it's marketed. So your idea might not be like John's. It's great if you can be first and only. That is the key to paradise right there. But if you can't, like in our case, there were a million other agencies out there, but the word means vintage. That's representative of the very best. I said, we're going to come up with the best strategy for our clients, for that client, for that time, for that situation. We're not worried about being the biggest. We're not worried about $1 million budgets. We're happy to work with the guy who has a 2-hour consultation because he might become a big client. And that worked very well because no one was going after that. We didn't start our company in Charlotte on East Boulevard. It's right here on Main Street in Lake Norman because there were plenty of small businesses that were willing to pay for a marketing partner. They just needed someone who was willing to work with them when they were small. And now, 27 years later, that was a really great formula. It wasn't terribly new. It was just a dedication to a specific niche. Great.
So Bill and team, just want to, as we wrap this up, one other thing to just remind, we got another reminder here is, just like Susan will give a couple hours, there's a lot of CPAs and insurance agents and other specialists and attorneys that you usually can get a free hour of time here or there while you're testing your idea and making sure that you're not crazy. But if you're not crazy, you should always take the step to explore that with others. So there's a lot of smart people out there that are willing to share that. The Chamber of Commerce, can also be a resource for that in with regard to organizations like SCORE and people that help with business plans. And, we have a lot of resources within the Chamber. And so don't forget that's a great place to start too with an idea. But we might not have an immediate answer for you, but I'm certain we can give you 5 to 10 people to go bounce ideas off of. And I would just let Bill take over from here. But thank you guys for presenting, John and Susan. It's always great to hear from you and see you. And, I always feel inspired when I listen to other inspiring stories. So I don't know what I'm going to go make and create, but I'm ready to go make and create something. So we'll
Thanks
figure
for
that
having us.
out.
Thank you.
Phil and Dell, thank you for the opportunity and good to see you.
Yeah, thanks.
And Dale, we introduced you as the business growth chair, but you are with Quest, started that organization. You started a foundation, Make an Impact Foundation. Quite an entrepreneur yourself. We could do a whole program with Dale Gilmore, but thank you for facilitating this program, and Susan and John for sharing with us your insights. So again, thank you everybody, and we are looking forward to the next program we put together. And thank you very much, and have a great day at the lake.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks.